A no-spend day is exactly what it sounds like. A designated day each week where no money leaves the account. No purchases, no subscriptions renewing, no food delivery, no incidental convenience spending. One day, 52 times a year. The direct financial impact depends on what average daily spending looks like. For most people, it saves somewhere between $20 and $60 per no-spend day. Multiplied by 52, that is meaningful. But the more valuable effect is psychological. A regular no-spend day trains the brain to recognize that comfort and satisfaction are available without a transaction. That boredom does not require a purchase to resolve. That a full and enjoyable day can happen without spending anything. This sounds obvious stated plainly. It is not obvious in practice for most people because consumer culture has done an extraordinarily effective job of linking every emotional state and every leisure moment to an available product. The no-spend day quietly reverses that conditioning 1 week at a time. I never stopped eating at restaurants. That is not what this habit is about. What I changed was the reason I was spending money in that category. Eating out because a meal is genuinely anticipated, social, celebratory, or a chosen experience is a completely different financial and emotional event from eating out because it is Tuesday and cooking feels like too much effort. The dollar amount may be similar, the intentionality is completely different. And intentionality is what determines whether spending produces satisfaction or just produces a transaction. The practical implementation was simple. Restaurant meals were planned, not defaulted to. A list of places I genuinely wanted to try, occasions that felt worth celebrating with a good meal, dinners with people I cared about, and environments worth the cost. These I spent on freely. The convenience category, delivery, fast casual, takeout as a fatigue response, I replaced with the meal prep habit. The restaurant budget did not disappear, it just became intentional. And intentional spending, even at the same dollar amount, produces significantly more satisfaction and significantly less regret. The next 6 habits cover the general spending behaviors that kept money from leaving the account unnecessarily. These are the most tactical habits on the list. Specific, practical interventions rather than mindset shifts. They worked not because they required constant discipline, but because they changed the default setting. A car is transportation. That is its function. Everything beyond transportation, the status signal, the new car smell, the upgraded trim level, is a premium you pay on top of the functional cost. And for most people in their early 20s, that premium, financed over 60 or 72 months at a meaningful interest rate, is one of the most financially destructive decisions available. Not because a car payment is impossible to afford, but because the combination of the payment, the insurance cost on a newer vehicle, and the depreciation curve on anything purchased new creates a financial drag that competes directly with wealth building. My car during the years I built the 100,000 was old enough that some people found it slightly embarrassing to be seen in. I did not. I found it freeing. No payment, lower insurance, full ownership. And the several $100s per month that would have gone to a car payment instead went into a brokerage account. Over the 3 years I drove that car past the point of social comfort, the redirected money compounded into a number that was worth far more than the social approval a newer vehicle would have purchased.
The default purchase sequence for most consumers is want something, find it new, buy it new. The alternative sequence I adopted was want something, check secondhand sources first, buy new only if secondhand is not reasonably available in good condition. This single reordering of the purchase sequence, not eliminating purchases, just checking a different source first, reduced my spending on clothing, furniture, books, electronics, and sporting equipment by a consistent 30 to 60% in those categories. The behavioral shift required here is not about sacrifice. It is about the willingness to take 5 extra minutes to check secondhand markets before going directly to retail. In the era of Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, ThreadUp, Poshmark, and local thrift stores, the secondhand market for almost every consumer category is deep, accessible, and in many cases, genuinely better for items where breaking in or pre-ownership produces a superior product. Books are identical. Furniture is often higher quality. Clothing wears the same. The new price is largely paying for the emotional experience of being the first owner. I found I valued the savings more. We covered the psychology of impulse buying in a previous video, and the 72-hour rule was one of the most effective countermoves available. For any non-essential purchase above a set threshold, for me it was $25, I required myself to wait 3 full days before completing the purchase, not as a punishment, as a deliberate cooling-off period between the emotional state that generated the want and the rational evaluation of whether the purchase made sense. The results were consistently surprising. Over the years I practiced this rule, I would estimate that more than 60% of items I photographed and set a reminder for never got purchased. Not because I decided against them deliberately, because after 72 hours, I had simply stopped caring enough to go back and complete the transaction. The want was real in the moment. It was not real 3 days later. The rule did not require willpower to resist. It just required patience to wait. And patience in personal finance is one of the highest return practices available.
Retail marketing exists for one purpose: to generate purchase occasions that would not have occurred organically. Every sale email, every push notification about a limited time deal, every new arrival alert is an attempt to create a want that was not present before the message arrived. By maintaining subscriptions to these services, most people are voluntarily exposing themselves to dozens of professionally crafted purchase triggers every day. And professionally crafted purchase triggers, deployed against a brain that is not on alert for them, produce purchases. I unsubscribed from every retail email list I could find and turned off every shopping notification on every device I owned. The process took about 2 hours spread across a week. The result was an immediate and measurable reduction in unplanned purchase behavior, not because my willpower improved, but because the triggers that produced the purchases had been removed from my environment. You cannot impulse buy a sale you did not know existed. Environmental design is not sexy personal finance advice. It is among the most effective available. The written want list works on a similar principle to the 72-hour rule, but operates over a longer time horizon. Instead of deciding in the moment whether a non-essential item is worth buying, the item goes on a list with the date it was added. Nothing on the list gets purchased until it has been there for at least 30 days. After 30 days, if the want is still present and still feels proportionate to the cost, the purchase is fair game. The want list accomplishes several things simultaneously. It captures wants without acting on them immediately, reducing the urgency that drives impulse decisions. It creates a waiting period that filters genuine, sustained desires from passing whims, and it provides visibility into patterns. After a few months of keeping one, you start to see which categories you repeatedly add items to, which tells you something real about what you actually value versus what you're being marketed to want. The list became one of my clearest signals about where my genuine priorities lay. Most of what I added never made it to purchase. What did make it felt completely different from what I used to buy impulsively. Shopping as entertainment is one of the most normalized and most financially damaging leisure habits in modern consumer culture. Browsing online or in stores without a specific purchase intention is a leisure activity that has a consistent, non-trivial financial output. Not because every browsing session ends in a purchase, because enough of them do, and the ones that do are driven by exposure and boredom rather than genuine need or considered desire. The habit I built was identifying specific free or low-cost leisure activities that genuinely satisfied the same boredom, curiosity, or social impulse that shopping had previously addressed, and deliberately defaulting to those when the pull toward browsing appeared. Libraries for the reading and exploration impulse, parks and trails for the sensory change of environment, free local events for the social impulse, cooking something challenging for the creative impulse. None of these are deprivation. All of them produce the same emotional satisfaction as recreational shopping without the financial output. Finding them required some experimentation. Keeping them required making them as accessible as the shopping alternatives. The final three habits are the structural ones, the behaviors that determined what actually happened to every dollar that came in. They are simple. They are the reason the number reached $100,000 by 24. Everything else on this list freed up money. These three habits captured it.
This is the habit that made every other frugal behavior on this list additive rather than the primary mechanism. Without automation, every other frugal behavior I practiced freed up money that was still vulnerable to spending before it reached savings or investments. With automation, the money was already in the right place before it had a chance to be anywhere else. The order of operations changed everything. Save first, invest first, then spend whatever remains. The automation itself is technically simple. A scheduled transfer from checking to savings and investment accounts, timed to execute the day after payday. What makes it powerful is that it removes the daily decision about whether to save. The decision was made once at setup and then never needs to be made again unless circumstances change. Willpower is not required. Consistency is not required. The system is consistent automatically. And a system that is consistent automatically is the only kind that actually stays consistent over the multi-year time horizons where compounding does its meaningful work. Before I invested a single dollar in anything other than an employer match, I built an emergency fund. 3 to 6 months of essential expenses in a high-yield savings account, completely separate from my checking account, and treated as if it did not exist for any purpose other than a genuine emergency. This was not the exciting part of the financial journey. There is no compound growth story from a savings account, but the emergency fund is the single most important structure in a young person's financial life. Not because emergencies are rare, but because they are reliably scheduled, in the sense that they will happen on a timeline you do not control. Without an emergency fund, every unexpected expense, car repair, medical costs, job disruption, essential appliance failure, becomes a credit card event. And a credit card event at 20% interest is the most efficient way to undo months of careful saving and frugal behavior in a single week. The emergency fund absorbs those events without touching the investment portfolio, without triggering high-interest debt, and without derailing the trajectory. It is boring protection for a financial life that took real effort to build. I treated it as the prerequisite for everything else. It was. This is the habit that compressed the timeline. Every salary increase I received during the years I built the 100,000 went directly and immediately to increasing the automated investment contribution by the full amount of the raise. Not partially, not after a brief lifestyle upgrade. Fully. The lifestyle was already funded at the pre-raise level. The raise had no job to do there, so it went somewhere it did have a job to do. The psychological trick that made this possible was treating the raise as money that did not yet belong to my lifestyle, because it literally did not. My lifestyle had been running comfortably on the pre-raise income. The raise was surplus from day one. Capturing it into the investment system before it ever touched the checking account meant it never had the chance to become lifestyle. And raises
compounded into investments rather than absorbed into lifestyle, are one of the fastest legal ways to build wealth that exists. The income grows, the lifestyle stays constant. The gap between them fills with investable assets. That gap is where the 100,000 came from. 20 habits, not 20 dramatic sacrifices, not 20 years of misery. 20 intentional choices built into patterns compounded over the years between 21 and 24. Some of them were uncomfortable at the time. All of them feel completely worth it in retrospect. And the most important thing I can tell you is this: you do not need to implement all 20 today. Pick one, the easiest one on this list that you are not currently doing. Build that into a habit. Then add another. The habits compound just like the money does. If any of these hit home for you, especially if one of them named something you have been doing without realizing it, or something you have been avoiding without a good reason, tell me in the comments which one it was. I read them all. And if you want to go deeper on any of these individually, the behavioral science, the implementation specifics, the compounding math, subscribe. We go deep on all of it here. I will see you in the next one.